Imagine me and you, I do. I think about you day and night. It's only right to think about the girl you love and hold her tight.
Welcome to Crazy Carrot Studios. My name is James, and today we will be going over Part 3 of our third-person controller using Cinemachine and the new input system, where today we will be adding Cinemachine and rotation to properly move our character. Back in our script here, we're going to want to add a few new variables. Now, because we're using our Cinemachine camera to rotate our player, we're going to add two variables here. One, the private float for rotate speed, which is going to allow the camera to rotate at the speed we want it to. And the second is the actual transform of the camera, so we can point the player in the direction the camera is facing. Next, in our update function, we're going to add a few new things. First is move direction equals move direction.x, camera transform.right.normalized, plus your move direction in the z value times camera transform.forward normalized. And then we're going to reset our direction to 0 on the y. Now the reason we are doing this is because we want to move the player in the direction of the camera's orientation. So the first part of this code, move direction equals move direction.x times camera transform.right.normalized plus move direction z times camera transform.forward.normalized. This takes the current movement direction of the player represented by the move direction vector and calculates a new vector that combines the camera's right and forward vectors by multiplying move direction.x by the camera's right vector and move direction.z by the camera's forward vector. The resulting vector will move the player in the direction relative to the camera's orientation. Now we reset the Y position to make sure that the character cannot go up and down. Now let's look at the next section here. Now in this first line of code here, we're creating a new quaternion object that represents the rotation the player character needs to face in order to look towards the camera. The Euler angle property of the camera transform object is used to extract the y-axis rotation of camera, which is then used to create the new quaternion rotation that only rotates around the y-axis. Because I'm not an expert at quaternions and Euler angles and whatnot, I would advise people to take a look at the Unity documentation on quaternions and Euler angles to better understand what it's doing. Now in the second line, we are actually smoothly rotating the player character towards the target rotation using a linear interpolation function. The transform.rotation property is the current rotation of the player character, and the target rotation variable is the rotation the player character needs to face. By doing a quaternion lerp, the rotation of the player character is gradually changed from the current rotation to the target rotation over time. The rotate speed variable controls how quick the rotation takes place, and the time.delta time is used to make the rotation frame rate independent. Now once again, if you want to find out more about lerp or slurp, which is a spherical interpolation, check out Unity's documentation for more information. Now back in our project, we need to create a few things here. We're going to start off by going and creating an empty, and we're going to call this a follow target. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this under our little ghost here, and I'm going to reset the value. Now in our scene view, you'll notice that it puts it at the bottom base of our character. I want to move this up to around the head. Now from here, I'm going to go ahead and create a Cinemachine virtual camera. Now in our virtual camera, we're going to set a couple settings here. One is we're going to keep this here as a framing transposer. And second, we're going to go to the aim and set it as POV. Now, if you looked at your game, you notice it's not exactly showing where we want it to see. So what we're going to do is we're going to assign the follow to the ghost. And we're going to assign the target where it looks at to our follow target. Now, for more information about Unity Cinemachine, take a look at their documentation. I will place a link in the description below. Now, the next thing we need to do is add a Cinemachine input provider to our components. This is going to allow us to transform the Cinemachine's input system to the new input system. Now, in here, we're going to go ahead and click on this, and we want to use the player look for our input action. Now, I'm cutting the video here to show a mistake I made. In the rest of the video, I'm using the player rotate input action, which is the one recreated in our input action maps. Now that we have our player look in there, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the settings that we're going to change. On mine, I've already done some of them, so let's go ahead and go into the body. Now, obviously, this is your object offset, so if you wanted to offset your X, Y, or Z values, you could do that so here. The look ahead basically is a way to instruct the Cinemachine camera to anticipate where you're going and change it accordingly. Damping will allow it to not automatically stop so quickly. It gives it more of a lerping effect. And then your screen X and screen Y. Now, screen X is a good way to set your shoulder offset. So if you're doing a shooter and you want to keep it offset to one side or the other, that is how you would do so. Screen Y does the same thing, but in the Y value. Obviously, it's camera distance, I would assume you would understand. Basically tells you how far away or close you are to the character. And then let's go into the aim settings. On the aim settings, value for the vertical kind of gives it that tilt if you're looking to look down on at a different angle. On the speed, we're changing it to 0.03 in mine, but I'm also changing it from max speed to input value gain. Now, on some of them, and including this one here, I've actually had to invert my axis here. You may want to check and see if you need to as well. If it's not responding the way you think it should, just come in here and click the invert, and it'll take it on or off for you. Now, on the horizontal axis, you'll notice it's doing the same thing, but it's rotating it on the x-axis. My speed that I've set it up here on this one is a 0.08. Now, obviously, this is going to be the speed that's going to represent when you're going side to side on your rotation. So if it's not moving fast enough for you, you can just change that here as well, or into your settings that you have on your script. Now, I've also changed this to the input value gain, and that should do just about everything we need. Now, there is one more thing we're going to want to attach to this, but I'm going to show you to you afterwards. Let's first take a look and see how this is moving. Okay, everything seems to be working right. Our character is rotating with where we're going. My up and down seems to be a little bit reversed, so I might go back in here and change my inversion. Let's see how that feels. That's going to be my Y. So let's see if that works for me better. Alright, so the other thing I was going to try to walk you through is if you come in here with your camera, you notice that it's blocking when you get around an object. This is one of the reasons why I brought the walls in here so you can see that. Or if we rotate, it's rotating behind it. We can fix that with a simple component that Cinemachine provides for us. By coming in here and add an extension, whoa, I think I just added the wrong one. Okay, and then we're going to remove that one. And let that reprocess. Okay, here we go. We're going to come back in here again, add an extension, but this time we're going to make sure we add the collider, Cinemachine collider. Now, you can set the ignore tag, and in my case, I want to ignore the player. I'm going to leave the collide against default. And then I am going to, and you might want to take a look and see which one works for you. For me, I'm going to pull the camera forward. And let's see what that looks like now. So now when I come over here and I rotate around the wall, it brings it in really close to my character. I can adjust that in the radius of it. So I can set that in the minimum distance as well. The other thing is if I come around the wall, you see how the camera kind of went around the wall with us. Now you can also change the damping on that so it's not so fast, or so you can mess around with all the settings and see what works best for you. Now, obviously, I don't want the clipping that much through as well, so let's take a look and see how I can fix some of that. Now, we're going to set up some values here. We're going to set this one to a 0.3 for occluded and 0.3 when it's coming out of being occluded. I'm going to set my smooth time to, let's say, 1. We'll see how that works. Actually, no, that's going to be a little high. Let's go 0.1. That'll work. And let's see how this works out here. One thing I do also want to do, we want to keep this low according to Unity, but we're going to make this, let's say, a 0.2. Now, this damping here is, damping when occluded is when the wall is in the way. This is how it's going to slowly transition to where we're going to get it to. And the damping is when it's coming out from occlusion. It's slow transition. So if you want a faster transition, set it to 0. If you want it to slowly go, you can increase this a little bit more. So let's take a look and see how this works. And it's never going to be perfect, but you'll get a good sense of what we're trying to do here. And see, it brings it right to the character, and you can still see everything, but the wall is no longer in the way. Same thing as if we're going to rotate and the wall gets in the way, it's going to bring it in. Now, hopefully this gives you a small taste of the power of the Cinemachine brain, as well as the flexibility it provides. Now, this will conclude this tutorial on the third-person controller using the input system and Cinemachine. In future episodes, I'm going to do a small refresher before we tackle a little bit more complex items like health and damage systems. And from all of us at Crazy Carrot Studios, we would like to say thank you. And don't forget to please like and subscribe. We will see you next time when we get back to Learning with Bob.